Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic:
if humans suddenly became immortal, what would happen to society? Power imbalance. The old people would still be in charge. Watch Altered Carbon, it explores this theme very well. Good news, the ruling class now acknowledges the long-term dangers of climate change. Bad news, eco-fascism is now in. Eco-fascism, what's that? Question mark. Right now the worst you can get for littering is a fine. Under eco-fascism it could be a prison sentence. People who were sentenced to life in prison would be pissed. There's people with ridiculous sentences like 300 years, but they aren't sentenced to life. Imagine 300 years later they're walking out despite their heinous crimes while the guy on life for stealing a car on his third strike just watches. How immortal we talking here? The answer ranges from Highlander-esque combat for property and resources to still sentient corpses that keep coming. Do we die when the sun expands and fries us, or do we just burn for millions of years until it finally dies? They said, immortal, not evergreen. Place'd be overcrowded by whiffy grey demented raisins by 2100. They also said, immortal, not indestructible. Accidents, natural disasters, murders and wars still happen. Also, how exactly does a human being get to be demented, but not dead? Dementia will eventually damage the brain enough to die. All the Gen X's and millennials who have been politely waiting for boomers to die will go full Highlander. Cement and charters to the marinas trench would skyrocket. Funeral directors would go out of business. There would be a new market for mock funerals for nostalgic people. Lol, I just quickly imagined how absurd this would get in the influencer circle. Gals, listen, if he doesn't adorn your casket with dozens of bouquets and have a 3 hours eulogy, he's just gaslighting you about forever love. My 80th birthday mock funeral. No more retirements. You can retire from your soul-crushing minimum wage McDonald's job at 130. Whoa, I didn't consider this. Nor the Soylent Green scenario to maintain the population sizes. 17,776 by John Boyes is a fun piece of speculative fiction about the topic. I was about to comment, we play a bunch of weird football while artificial intelligences watch us and ponder what it all means. Wait, the author of 17,776 is John Boyes. That actually explains a lot, having seen the kind of stuff he does on YouTube. Reading 17,776 for the first time was a fucking ride. The metamorphosis of prime intellect is a wild ride, too. We'd die in a new way, a more meaningful, deeper, darker way. We would pray for death and only be left longing. Immortal as in not dying from age would have us live on average to around 400 IIRC. Straight up unable to die is ugly. Was discussing this as plot points recently with my 13-year-old. Here's what we decided on. There's undying, where you just age slowly then stop, but you can be killed just like a normal person. There's true immortality, where you can't be killed under any circumstance even if you're blown to bits. Then there's conditional immortality, where you keep living as long as you like, no matter what, but when you decide to die you can just switch yourself off. Undying is probably best, as at least you'll still have human goals and desires and have to pay attention. True immortality sounds like a fucking nightmare if there's no escape, and I'm not talking just being buried alive or whatever. Conditional immortality would seem like the best, but I'm betting would take a lot of the spice out of life. Debt would be rigged to last hundreds of years or more. The cost of durable assets like houses, land, cars would get so heavily inflated it would be unreal. 20-year car loans, 1 century-long mortgages. It would be nuts. We're already at 50-year mortgages. See, Torchwood Miracle Day. That was a nice exploration of the consequences. See also, Altered Carbon. Seconded for both of these. A lot of the issues people bring up are covered by one or both. Altered Carbon is especially poignant, with the current state of affairs and everything being monetized. A world where we invent immortality but it only benefits the rich and pleasures the poor, lifetime prison sentences leaving you with no family or friends left, and due to how immortality works in the setting, a strong chance at not even ending up back in your body, having it being sold off to the highest bidder. Meanwhile the rich can live as long and as young as they please, simply buying or manufacturing the best sleeves, bodies, seems especially relevant. Removed. Everyone is infertile. No, I'm not op. I'm just replying to every comment because I live an empty, meaningless life and I have nothing else to do. You clearly understood the assignment because that's what immortality would be. Imagine still cringing about something you said 300 years ago, when your crush saw you pick your nose 200 years ago. Torturing forever would happen. Literal hell on earth. Who will be on earth? I be very well on earth, slightly smiling face. It will be full and not enough supply. We would stop having kids and our thinking would become rigid. If you think people will stop popping out kids, you're crazy. There'd probably be forced sterilization, even euthanizing by the, now even scarier, powers that be. The first challenge to face would be the inevitable overpopulation. That really depends on whether we still age or not. Figure out immortality and stopping but not reversing aging. But not till you are 90 years old. Like, come on guys, this is BS. Weirdly enough, Torchwood did a pretty decent job of showing this. Medical resources become strained, diseases run rampant, and eventually the world governments begin to send the injured, sick, and elderly into camps for incineration. An economic depression ensues. In the show they estimate the Earth would only be able to handle 4 months of it before resources were strained beyond their limits. If it meant we truly couldn't die, what would essentially happen is a grey goo situation, except with humans instead of nanomachines. We would overrun the planet, every surface covered in human biological matter, until eventually the oceans would dry up, all other life would go extinct, an atmosphere would disappear, and we'd float on a barren rock until the sun finally puts us out of our misery in a few billion years. Of course, if we couldn't die, the sun would only just bake us into a miserable, organic soup. A red giant has a surface temperature almost hot enough to boil gold. It'll be pretty clear we need to spread out. Planetarily. Immortal as in we don't die of natural causes or meaningfully age beyond a certain point. Or immortal in the sense that we actually cannot be killed. Because those are very different scenarios. Violence. Infinite tax glitch. Find out in the sci-fi book Scythe. This is the exact premise. Great book, too. I like to think it would lead to more love. The influence survival mechanisms play on daily interactions with other people seem to cause competition, and not the healthy kind. War would be useless, because we couldn't die. We would learn more, because we could take more risks. But the part one care about is that we could love more overall as a planet. Because the common underlying survival causes for distrust and hate would be that much less in the way of us seeing each other. They'd kill each other. How though? They're immortal. It could be the living forever immortality, not the, you can't be harmed, immortality. Immortal can mean doesn't die of natural causes but still can be killed. Long life without disease etc. but can still come to harm. People might get mentally exhausted after living for centuries. Burnout could become a whole new kind of problem. Many days, knowing death and escape from the humans is coming someday is the only peace I have. The thought of immortality makes me need a muscle relaxer and a joint. Birth control for everyone. People will stop valuing time and start putting things off until later. Gonna revisit this pile of laundry when I'm 403. There's a YAR series that touches upon this, Scythe. It's pretty great, but there's a point early in the first book where the protagonists go to a museum, and they make a comment about how the art is different. Other important points of the book: the world is run by AI, all diseases are curable, even death, accidents, falls, etc. When humanity no longer needs to strive for anything, then our forms of expression suffer. We'd start beelining it to a massive overpopulation issue. Every 20 years, our population would more or less double. 8 billion would become 16 billion, then 32 billion, etc. There would be some variety depending on who chooses to have kids or not, but that's the general direction you could expect. The only way I know of to prevent this would be for immortality to come with drastically decreased fertility, if not straight up sterility. Space travel, baby. We would finally be able to colonize other planets. People killing themselves out of boredom would become a trend. I think they made a sci-fi series about this called Torchwood. I remember watching the first episode and it speculated on what would happen if people just stopped dying. One of the doctors realized their procedure was completely wrong. Normally you stabilize the critical cases and save as many lives as possible while working on the people who will survive but still needed some medical attention. But if no one ever dies, the earth would be flooded with people. You no longer have a time frame to save someone's life, so it's somewhat better to get the mild cases out of the way to free up bodies to work on the severe cases. Another interesting idea was a death row inmate sued the state to get out of jail. It wasn't his fault he didn't die during the lethal injection, so he argued that he had served his sentence, and the sentence didn't say he would be imprisoned for eternity. There can be only one. Crossed swords. There is an entire season of the show Torchwood which deals with this scenario. Doctor Who spin-off Torchwood had its final season revolving around this plot line. It ended in sick people being unable to die and criminals on death row unable to be executed. It was extremely dark. Nobody could die. Some twats would buy everything they can to monopolize wealth and push the lower class to work harder so they can holiday in space. Oh wait. This depends on the mechanics of the immortality. Can people still be rendered inanimate, brain dead from trauma, disease, starvation? If so, resource control will become the next big source of corruption. It would basically be the premise of Torchwood, Miracle Day. Is it eternal youth? It will be a few centuries of lots of sex, population explosion, war, and then everyone chasing that next big high. Humanity would become as depraved as the Eldar just before the birth of Slaanesh in Warhammer 40,000. Overconsumption of resources would be a big problem. Humanity would be forced to expand to other planets and orbital space stations, leading to us eventually spreading across the galaxy like a plague that refuses to die. We would be wiped out by natural selection, having no ability to adapt by shedding the dead. I talked with my friend about this a while ago. A priority would be avoiding situations where you could become trapped or stuck for a long, potentially infinite period of time. I'm talking cave diving incidents, stuck at the bottom of the ocean, etc. Sure, they're bad now, but it's way worse if you're there forever. Eventually, people would get tired of just experiencing the same stuff on Earth and would want new experiences, potentially in the stars. Again, we have eternity, so if it takes a while, that's not so big a deal. But again, the issue of being stuck is a problem, and I think it would dominate people's fears. Exploring space in person means you have the risk of being stuck drifting in space for eternity if something goes wrong. I think a system of remote control surrogate bodies or drones would be a popular option. Our immortal bodies on Earth piloting or even projecting our consciousness to other bodies elsewhere to have new experiences.